Our thanks to Nicole, and welcome to Debate Night in America. This special edition of The Beat will take you through everything you need to know as we ramp up. I'm Ari Melber, and we'll show you this live shot of the scene outside the debate hall where Joe Biden and Donald Trump are facing off. This is the earliest general election debate in American history. And that's not all. Alex Wagner is there and will be joining us in just a moment. See you soon, Alex. The Biden campaign pushed to jumpstart interest in the race by making this debate earlier. And we can tell you tonight a huge 73% of voters say they are planning to watch tonight. And you can too. Nicole just mentioned this debate airs right here on MSNBC in about 3 hours, with Rachel Maddow leading the special coverage in under an hour. I can also tell you this is the first debate between a president and a former president. Kind of an interesting factoid there. It's also the first time these two have been near each other at all since their last debate. Remember, Donald Trump broke tradition. He skipped the swearing in of President Biden after Donald Trump had failed to overthrow his own loss. This is also the first time either candidate has debated in any forum in 4 years. Neither did any primary debates this cycle. So there are a lot of ways that this is even higher stakes than it would already be. Now, that last debate was intense, heated, important. Many viewed it as one of the turning points that favored Joe Biden's eventual win.
We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
He blew it.
Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job.
One of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history.
I am the least racist person in this room.
The president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it
you
on the
said
ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court. Well,
there's nothing happening there.
That's how it went down. Now, turning to today, we can tell you Trump arrived in Georgia just in the last hour. And Biden here, you can see, touching down, he's hugging Stacey Abrams there, a big star in that state of Georgia. And she is part of our special coverage tonight. She joins me live tonight in a few minutes. Now, the other differences from past years, under the rules negotiated partly to deal with what you just heard, Donald Trump's incessant interruptions and his breaches of decorum, tonight mics will be muted during the other candidates' answer time, and there's no audience at all. So tonight matters. In a political world where people sometimes seem to disagree on literally everything, including the facts themselves, both campaigns agree that tonight is big. Nobody's pretending otherwise. And Biden's fans and the MAGA crowd both have seen how the past debates shaped the race between these two people. So you know how they debate, you know it's the same two people, and you know they have a big debate tonight that could matter. Indeed, there are people who remember how an often underestimated Joe Biden used a pretty sturdy performance in that debate to cast Donald Trump as basically unhinged and in over his head. And we all remember what happened after that. Something rare. An incumbent president lost an election by several states. Now, if campaigns are largely about storytelling, the candidate's origin story and why he or she's right for the job now, the story of our nation, what we've been through, where we're at, where we should be going, well, debate night, I would argue to you, is a little different. And I really mean this. Debates are more like a rap battle between the two MCs, where the words matter, the attacks are high stakes because everybody's listening. And even if you think, well, we kind of knew there were going to be attacks, and I knew you'd say that about me or my family or what I did wrong or any mistake I've ever made, the right words can still change everything. That's true in a debate or a rap battle. Just ask Dan Quayle, who was dunked on so memorably in a single debate. It not only hurt his campaign, it defined his career for years. Just ask Trump, who, as I remind you, went from incumbent president to defeated January 6th agitator after his debates with Biden. Or just ask Drake, the most popular MC in the world until a recent rap battle debate redefined him for many. So Biden is sometimes underestimated, and he has sometimes stumbled. But of all these attacks that he's faced this year, tonight he may have to channel both the president in him and the bruising, brawling candidate in him, and maybe a little bit of Eminem in his famous 8 Mile rap battle. Standing tall, until he's outie and telling Trump, go ahead, tell these people something they don't know about me. With that, we are joined by Reverend Al Sharpton, who knows his way around politics, debates himself. He's been on that stage and music, host of the National Action Network, and Alex Wagner, host of Alex Wagner Tonight, who I'm thrilled to say is on the ground keeping an eye on everything for us, as she'll be doing all evening with our special coverage live from Atlanta. Alex, I go to you first. You can comment on the past debates, on the rap battle of it all, or just tell us what you're seeing on the ground.
I don't know. Am I allowed to comment on the rap battle of it all when you're in the same room with? Well, you're not in the same room, so on the same program, maybe I can. I don't know that we're going to get Eminem style like 16 bars from Joe Biden, but the sense that I get from Biden surrogates and people in Atlanta tonight is there's a degree of confidence about Joe Biden's ability to show up. I think there's a degree of trepidation around the X factors, which is, I think, to some degree natural. One of those being the cut mics. You know, on one hand, the cut mics are useful if you actually want to get a point across. On the other hand, the Donald Trump of it all is muted, makes Joe Biden's job just a little bit harder because the American public is not privy to his interruptions and general insanity, right? That's something that I think the Biden campaign wants to underscore tonight, just how unreliable and chaotic Donald Trump is. And with a muted mic, that becomes a little harder. The other piece of it is Donald Trump can still talk and Joe Biden can still hear him. We won't hear Donald Trump talking, but Joe Biden will if the mic is on mute. And so is that going to throw Joe Biden off his game? That's an X factor that nobody can know until the debate unfolds. But the other piece of it is, you know, you said this at the top of the show, Ari, this matters. And I think everybody recognizes that as such. And to some degree, as John Heilman was saying in the previous hour with Nicole, I think the general standards in the way we judge debates and we sort of do the post-game analysis, all of that is different now. Not just because the stakes are so high, but because this could be the only debate that we have. This could be the only moment the American public, Earth 1 and Earth 2, watch both of these men on stage talk about the essential issues ahead of us.
Rev?
I think that it is very true that this is the first time in history we're having two presidents debate, a former president. It's also the first time in history we're having one of them as a 34 convicted felon. And I don't care what preparation they've given Trump. If President Biden is able to interject that I am talking to a man whose parole officer had to be informed he was going to Atlanta, I think these are the kinds of things that will provoke Trump to get off his game plan. Everyone's saying he may be cool. He may be cool unless he's jabbed with the right things that he's sensitive about. Because let's not forget, in 2 weeks, he's going to be sentenced. So if I was Joe Biden, I would compare, and I've been on the stage, we did 23 presidential Democratic primary debates. When those Craig lights go on you, everybody that briefed you is in the it's you and the people you're running against. And when Joe Biden is looking at this guy, he has got to say, this guy is not qualified to be president. From what I did as senator to vice president that helped recover the country to what I've done now, these are the facts. His facts is he was a businessman who filed bankruptcy 4 or 5 times, failed in certain other endeavors, and went on to be president and mismanaged COVID-19 that brought us in one of the worst economic down spiral that we've seen that I've been able again. So I've helped recover the country twice. Once as vice president under Obama, after Bush's debacle, and I had to come behind Trump's debacle. Who do you want as president?
It's almost like Rev has done this before.
Once or twice.
I want to show something to both of you and our audience here. This is a graphic of all the debates Joe Biden has done. It's actually quite remarkable. He's debated on the national stage more than any other living candidate. Here was the memorable debate he had with Palin.
Nice to meet you. Hey, can I call you Joe? Okay, good.
Look, the people in my neighborhood, they get it. They get it, and they know they've been getting the short end of the stick.
Joe Six-Pack, hockey moms across the nation.
The middle class has gotten the short end. The wealthy have done very well. Corporate America has been rewarded some time. We change it. Barack Obama will change it.
Governor.
Say it ain't so, Joe. There you go again. I think that's why we need to send the maverick from the Senate and put him in the White House.
You're going to have to replace a $12,000 plan with a $5,000 check you've just given to the insurance company. I call that the ultimate bridge to nowhere.
Was it a simpler time, Alex? I don't know. I'll let the public judge. But people felt then he did well and that Palin, like Trump, was a challenging foe. Your thoughts?
Well, look, I mean, I think the contours of that debate were markedly different than the ones today. I mean, Joe Biden is, yes, of course, going to be battling Donald Trump, but he's also going to be battling, as Dan Pfeiffer says, a caricature of himself as an enfeebled old man who has no business running the country. That is not something he had to contend with when he battled Sarah Palin, right? There were gender dynamics on display there, but it was also fundamentally about Barack Obama. In that clip, that's who he's talking about. Joe Biden wasn't making the case for himself to be president. He was making the case as the president's wingman, and I think that the stakes are necessarily a lot lower in that event. I think it's as much what Joe Biden says tonight as how he delivers it and what he needs to give the American public and the skeptical voters who still don't know who they want to pull the lever for in November is a sense of confidence. It's just a sort of the tenor of what needs to happen tonight and inevitably what will happen tonight. The emotional tenor of it is so different than it was in 2008. It's almost an apples to orange comparison.
Apples to oranges.
No, I agree.
Both healthy snacks, though, Rev, compared to what we have out in the green room. I'm going to show you something, and you can respond to both. Okay. That comparison Alex made, and something that you deal with Trump, where he did change how debates work. We reach for culture and music and things sometimes because not everyone's a political junkie. Shane Gill is a very popular comic, and he has a whole riff about how Trump changed in 2016, what debates even are in this country, maybe for the worse. Take a look. Is your thing?
And he did. But what was entertaining 4 years ago is different now. Because, again, I cannot emphasize enough, here's a man that has been accused of committing crimes. Does he want to look like he breaks all the rules? So if he's the only one that's breaking the decorum of a debate tonight with the moderators and his opponent, then I think he plays into the image that he's someone that is totally unyielding to any rules and that he's certainly one that we can't trust to run the country. He's got to try to convince people he's not the irresponsible guy that they saw just convicted in a courtroom.
We are running a little over on time, but I want to pull Alex Wagner back here and say, Alex, with your agreement and blessing, I think we'd be remiss on a night like tonight if we didn't show a little bit of Reverend Al Sharpton on the debate stage. Is everyone cool with that?
No, agree. Yes,
okay.
No notes.
You know what? Hit it.
To say that blacks were 3/5 of a human, what do you mean? Are gays and lesbians human or not?
Of course they're human.
Well, then why can't they have the same human rights? NAFTA and the WTO were wrong from its beginning. You cannot change it. You must rescind it. We cannot continue to let the lack of democracy in Washington, D.C. become the dirty little secret of American politics. Kerry and Mr. Edwards voted for the wall. They support trade agreements. They supported what I think is the most anti-civil rights act of our time, the Patriot Act.
There it is. Rev, any final thought on what you learned doing it that's relevant as we watch tonight?
I think that you've got to be passionate. I think you've got to have the facts. And with all I did, Alex still didn't vote for me. That's why I'm here at MSNBC.
Respect, Rev.
Respect. Reverend Al Sharpton, former presidential debater. Alex Wagner, inside the debate room where you're going to be seeing a lot more tonight. Our thanks to both of you. Let me tell folks what's coming up. I have a debate expert who's actually prepped 10 different presidential candidates. Going to give us special insights coming up. Stacey Abrams, though, live from Atlanta, our special guest, next. Yep. That's SNL talking about Stacey Abrams' country. As you know, the South has something to say. And Stacey Abrams is our special guest tonight. Georgia became the swing state, and it powered Biden's 2020 victory. Abrams was a big part of organizing the groundwork there and flipping the Senate seats. She also, as we showed you at the top of the hour, was greeting none other than President Biden today. Stacey Abrams is the former Democratic leader of the Georgia House. Welcome, and what do you see as critical there tonight on the ground?
Thank you for having me. And I think you all articulated it perfectly. Joe Biden has to remind America of the consequence of returning to the 4 hellish years of Donald Trump. We've been told again and again to take Trump seriously, not literally, but we now have to do both. This is a person who, when he did not win his election, fomented an insurrection. It was a literal attack on our Capitol that left people dead. When he did not get his way, he committed crimes, and he's now been convicted 34 times. We know that he both seriously and literally does not have the best interest of this country at heart. And if we look at Joe Biden, we know that he has spent the last 4 years being both serious about our progress and literal about the investments. Hundreds of billions of dollars put into infrastructure, into new jobs, into helping to restore the confidence around the world in our country. This is a man who has done what he said he was going to do. And so if Joe Biden reminds people of that in tonight's debate, which I believe he will do, and if Donald Trump shows up and reminds people of who he was 4 years ago, who he has been for 70 plus years, I think we will see President Joe Biden reelected in November.
It's interesting to hear you say that. A lot of folks around Biden feel that as long as the country wakes up to the choice, the stakes, and the policies, they're in a good spot, as opposed to, say, the superficial, the viral videos, the meme wars, which is part of life and politics. If you go back to those debates, as you know, there was a lot of policy discussed. Here was some of it in 2020.
The president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all.
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
He says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
What do you think is the key policies that have to be driven home tonight?
I think those are 2 important policies. One is, of course, the fact that in half of the country, women do not have access to the right to control their bodies. We know that that is the direct result of Donald Trump. That, again, seriously and literally, he stripped women of the right to control their bodies. We know that he put in place a tax cut, and if he renews it and expands it as he promises, we know it will cause a recession. The recession that Joe Biden has very assiduously kept us out of will absolutely happen. People will lose money. We will see cuts to Medicare, see cuts to Social Security. And we know that Donald Trump does not believe in democracy. We will see further erosion of the right to vote. We have 28 states that have restricted their laws since the last presidential election, simply because they thought too many people participated. They thought too many voices were heard. And so in these states, including the state of Georgia, people like Brian Kemp and Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott have followed Trump's lead and made it harder and harder for people of color, for young people, for the poor to cast their ballots, for the disabled to cast their ballots. And so those are 3 critical issues: the right to vote, the right to control your body, and the right to be able to take care of your families. And I think if Joe Biden articulates those issues, he will absolutely distinguish himself from Donald Trump.
And a little bit more sound, the last clip for you, we talked about how there's the rules and there's a mute button, but roughly half the time is still a portion of Donald Trump, which means people may also hear things like this. Take a listen.
Frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time. She doesn't know if it's the Russians doing the hacking. Maybe there is no hacking. These lenders aren't babies. These are total killers. We have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out. Are you going to apologize, Jeb? No. Am I allowed to finish?
Yes, one at a time. Go ahead.
Am I allowed to finish?
Go ahead.
Every single question comes to me?
Mr. Trump,
I know I'm good for the ratings, but it's a little bit ridiculous. No, I'd like to know, Anderson, why aren't you bringing up the emails? I'd like to know. Why aren't you getting
brought up
to
the
bottom?
emails.
No, it hasn't. I have great respect for women. Nobody has more respect for women than I do.
You can get back on your meds.
There's a lot of fun up here tonight, I have to tell you.
How do you think, as a Biden surrogate and ally, how do you think he should deal with it if it turns into that stuff? How much do you respond? The whole nation's watching. If he says big enough stuff, there's a feeling of a reasonable person would respond without being derailed.
Well, we're not electing a jester in chief, and that's what Donald Trump tries to be. What we have to see from President Biden is what we've seen not only for the last 4 years, but throughout his time in office, which is that he is the mature person on that stage, that he is the person who's actually thinking about the people and not thinking about himself. Every time Donald Trump flings insults or refuses to answer questions or demonstrates his absolute lack of knowledge about how our country operates, he is showing that he's only in this for himself. All Joe Biden has to do is be himself and show and remind America that he is in it for us, that he has served us, that he has put not only investments for us, but he has led this country forward out of what could have been so much worse. Because as Reverend Sharpton pointed out, he has rescued this country not once, but twice. And if we restore Donald Trump, we are giving the country to someone who does not care about the people who live here.
Yeah. Stacey Abrams, thank you very much, and I know you'll be watching tonight. Later tonight, we have the Democratic debate guru who's coached so many candidates, including Barack Obama. We're going to get his wisdom. In about half an hour, Rachel Maddow starts leading up our special coverage, so you want to stick around for that. And our breakdown of how these debates land on the front pages, all the way to the viral moments. But next, Joe Trippi, veteran Democratic strategist, on this debate. Next. Tonight's debate, which you can watch right here on MSNBC. Rachel's taking over coverage in about half an hour. This debate is not just for news junkies. If you watch MSNBC every day, we love that. But it is not just for you and those of us who are super into it. This thing is of huge national interest. USA Today, which doesn't always have politics on the front page, giving it the big lead and dubbing it Presidential Debate, Opportunity and Risk. San Francisco Chronicle, covering memories of a chaotic 20 debate resurfacing, you know, like some kind of political trauma. In Detroit, the newspaper headline writer's asking, is it a big deal or a big yawn, but it's still on the front page before it even happens. The gravity of this much anticipated rematch is being felt everywhere in the country.
TikTok, today is the day.
Tonight is the first presidential debate, which tell me why I'm actually more excited for that than I was for the NBA Finals this year.
Republicans are absolutely panicking over how the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden is going to go.
If Joe Biden gets asked about the border at any point tonight, how in the hell is he going to defend and explain that number?
Most people just want to see exactly who's going to mess up the most.
Take a drink whenever Biden says, come on, man. Take a drink if either candidate calls the other one by a nickname. Best of luck. Go America.
Go America. So people have all sorts of different ways of engaging on this. You can go all the way back to the days of George W. Bush. And we have someone who was there in that era, Joe Trippi, ran Howard Dean's campaign and worked on a lot of different political projects. In fact, we found him backstage. This was in primary debate season, right after Dean had been on that same stage as Al Sharpton and others that we showed you earlier.
Most of the questions asked of us from tax, anytime we're the full focus, that's good for us. So if the other candidates help do that, that's their, that's what they did, and we're fine with it.
That was Joe Trippi talking about it backstage. Here he was with me at Harvard as we dug into that campaign. I'm thrilled to tell you on a big debate night, he's not on air all that much, but he's agreed to join us next. It's Debate Night America. You can watch it right here on MSNBC, and we are joined now by Joe Trippi, a Democratic strategist, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project, and a campaign veteran. He worked for Ted Kennedy's presidential campaign. He managed one of the first digitally focused pioneering campaigns by Howard Dean, who's joined us before, and you see all the folks on the plane there. He knows his way around a big debate stage like this one tonight. Joe, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Ari. You somehow stayed the same while I got old, but it's good to be with you, man.
That's nice of you to say. I wouldn't go that far, but I'll take it. We had, these are those nights. We had early Sharpton too, who was up when your candidate was up. What is different that you know from being so close to it, prepping for it, having plans, some that work, some that don't? What can you tell us about that as we gear up for tonight?
I actually think this was an easy one to prepare for. I think it's the reason the Biden people wanted to do this so early, because this is, Carville used to say it's the economy stupid. I really think this is the contrast stupid. And the debate tonight, Biden's mission is contrast, 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 contrast on demeanor, contrast on policy, contrast on record. No matter what Trump does, immediately go to contrast. Immigration, contrast that with mass deportations. I mean, on every single, just go straight into contrast. And for that reason, I think it's actually, I would assume it was a fairly easy prep. I mean, not going over it a lot, obviously, but I think Joe Biden will know what his mission is. I think he's on his mission. I think that was part of why they wanted this debate. And I don't think there's anything Trump can do to avoid the contrast. I mean, whether he's the new calm Trump or whatever, whichever guy shows up, it's still going to be a real, I think that's the mission of the Biden people, and I'm pretty confident.
You're talking about chamomile Donald.
Yeah.
Who we don't always see.
Yeah, right.
But every so often. I mean, look.
No, that's the deep state finally got to him, too.
Well, here's the thing. You know, you're referring to the strategy behind it. And as we've shown, a lot of Americans are gearing up because they've been told there's a debate. They may or may not remember that it's not usually this early, but it's a big deal. But the strategy is if you're up by a lot, if you really think you're up so much that you don't need a debate, you typically don't. And that's why Donald Trump skipped the debates in the primaries. Here, both sides, interestingly, think they need this, at least the first one. You know, there's no contract, there's no law that will make them do another one when they say they have a plan for two. But this one tonight, both sides seem to think that they need or benefit by doing it, that nobody has such a wide gap that they're begging the other side to do it. And I want to show last time was similar. I mean, Trump was the incumbent president. He broke other traditions. He skipped some primary debates, but he ultimately felt like, COVID, economic cataclysm, he needed to do it. And Biden benefited from that, as I've mentioned. Take a look.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent.
He doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters.
He has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
To your point, what do you see as the fundamentals of why they both wanted to do this, willing to do it early, and who might be right?
Again, I'm absolutely convinced that the Biden people want the country to focus on the contrast between those two men. Actually, just those clips that you just saw between decency and lying, again, make the country focus on that contrast. Let them see it again. Remind them of what that contrast looks and feels like. That's why I think it was a blunder by the Trump people to agree to this. I think it's a big mistake, and I think they've realized that as they get closer and start talking about how Biden, who was Sleepy Joe, is suddenly going to be hopped up on something. That's the only way they can explain how he's going to roll over them tonight. I just really am pretty confident that it's the contrast, just the clips that you just showed us demonstrate that. Well, it reminded everybody just now of that moment, and it's going to happen for 90 minutes tonight. And I think starting in June now, particularly after the convictions, felony convictions, the focus is starting to get more to the two of them, away from some of the third-party candidates. They'll still pop up and around, but I think that's what the Biden people wanted to do, to make that contrast clear, Ari.
I'll show you one more thing, which is this collage we have that dramatizes, but with real photography, all the different debates Joe Biden has done. He's done more national debates than any living person. Now, if you're a hater, as the kids say, Joe, you might say, oh, well, he's at his turn. He's done a lot. Yeah, well, Supreme Court justices, experienced people in business, a lot of people are around because they're good enough at it to stay at the top of their game, but they get older. He's older, obviously. I don't think that's a secret. Both these candidates are older. But when you look at this spread of experience, how do you think that fits in tonight?
Look, I think, look, he's not going to be surprised by a whole lot. I think, and the other part of this is in a lot of ways very predictable. They know, Joe Biden knows where Donald Trump is going to come on inflation, on immigration, on crime. He knows that. It's basically, and he is a good debater. I've watched him debate since back in, the 87 and 86 race, 80, going into the 88 race before he got out. He's pretty quick on his feet, and I still think he is today. We saw that the last one in 2020. shut up, man. That's going to, maybe make a drinking game, because he may have to say that a lot tonight, even with the mics being turned off. But I do think that experience, and I'd add another thing. I think with that experience also in debating also comes wisdom. I think he'll know. I think he's much more disciplined now than ever in terms of knowing what he wants to do, knowing what his mission is, and because his mission is heartfelt, about the soul of the nation, I think it was important when Jill Biden today telegraphed, I think.
How it works is you got a 98% offset, okay? There's big gaps here is when you're selling a whole bunch of electricity back to the utility company.